And I asked myself two things. What are my interests and what are my passions, which is personal development? And what are my gifts? What am I really good at? And hopefully your audience will agree, is my ability to communicate effectively. And so I married those two concepts.
I don't want to kid people and tell them, like, don't do it for the money, because everybody gets into entrepreneurship for the money. It was just, I realized it can't be about the money. That the part of entrepreneurship is that you can follow your passion, and the money is a byproduct of that.
Nailed it. I became comfortable being uncomfortable by showing up on social media to build a huge brand, because nowadays social media is the ultimate marketing tool.
Every single stage in life or business, that consistency is so powerful. And we are back with another episode of the Julius Files. I am your host, Jason Julius, and today we are doing an entrepreneurial chronicle. And I've got a super cool guest today. His name is Craig Siegel, and we have a mutual friend in business, and that's how we connected. So we're all gonna learn about Craig and his entrepreneurial story and see where this goes. So Craig, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. It's true. We do have a mutual friend. I'm glad that you and I connected. I'm ready to rock. Let's do this.
All right. I want to learn a little bit, but I'm like, let's start with a little bit of a backstory. Where'd you come from? What kind of, how did you find your way into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, great question. So after college, I was not one of those cats that knew exactly what I wanted to do. However, I was ambitious, but I was a little bit lost in the wilderness with no compass, if I'm being honest. Because I'm ambitious, because I live in New York, a good place to end up was Wall Street. So I did just that. But ironically enough, a key part of my story is this. When I got to Wall Street after college, I also discovered personal development and self-help. And I was fascinated and captivated by the fact that we can actually be in control of our thoughts. We could revamp our mindset. We could utilize the law of attraction and stuff like that. And so I used those tools, and I had a ton of success from a financial standpoint on Wall Street. And then I pivoted when Wall Street stopped becoming as much fun, because ultimately there's a lot of unpredictability and so forth. And I started a new business where basically provided working capital. Both businesses, very lucrative, 8-figure businesses, but ultimately I was still searching for my calling. I always felt like I was here for a reason, as I believe we all are. And we all have individual gifts, and I was always looking to identify them. And then fast forward, the pandemic / lockdown, bang, for the first time in my life as a grown man, I couldn't even work if I wanted to, because we'd have shut down my office, or could I? And it was in this moment that I found myself grounded for the first time. And I believe in the power of big, powerful questions. And I started to ask myself, am I really happy? And the answer was not even close. I had actually been in a pretty dark place at this time. My father had gotten diagnosed with cancer. I just got out of a toxic relationship. I was waking up every day and I felt like I was going to a job. And I know a lot of people, I'm sure in the audience, can relate to this at some point. Wasn't exactly exciting work. Wasn't setting my soul on fire. Felt like I was kind of going through the motion, so to speak. Even though I gave everything my all, just wasn't for me. And so I asked myself some deep questions. And from studying personal development, I had a strategy. And I basically said, I don't want to go back when this lockdown is done. What else can I do? And I asked myself two things. What are my interests and what are my passions, which is personal development? And what are my gifts? What am I really good at? And hopefully your audience will agree, is my ability to communicate effectively. And so I married those two concepts, to communicate and my love for personal development. And I put together this huge vision. I don't want to be the next Tony Robbins. I want to be the first Craig Siegel. And I hit the ground running, so to speak, started putting out content, launching coaching programs, membership, community, podcasts, over 1 million downloads, now sponsored by Mark Cuban, keynote speaking all over the country. And I'm very grateful to say I never looked back. I burned the ship, so to speak. I don't want to go back. And I said, I have to make this work. Sold my business on Wall Street. And this is it for me. And we're just getting started, all things entrepreneurship, and the best is yet to come.
So you literally built an 8-figure business and just walked away from it because it just didn't feel right anymore?
Not feeling right is putting it lightly. I was miserable. You know what I'm saying? Like, life is meant to be lived. And I believe if we're willing to do the work, we can cultivate alignment, meaning we can find what actually sets our soul on fire and pursue a career in that. And the best part is once you identify that, you can absolutely 100% combine making an impact and making a lucrative living. And I was finally able to identify and discover what it is that I really wanted to do. And so to answer your question in a nutshell, yes. And the funny part is this, here's the irony. I didn't start my CLS brand for the money, so to speak. I was doing well for myself on Wall Street. But as it turns out, when you really step into alignment and it really doesn't feel like work and you do a good job, the universe opens up doors and presents opportunities and money follows you. When you make an impact, the money is the end result. So I'm making more money now than I ever made on Wall Street. I sold that business. And like I said, we'll just get warmed up with this stuff. So yes, I left that business.
No, that's awesome because you can feel the passion in what you're saying, but there's so many people that it's like, I don't want to kid people and tell them like, don't do it for the money, because everybody gets into entrepreneurship for the money. It was just, I realized it can't be about the money. That the part of entrepreneurship is that you can follow your passion and the money is a byproduct of that.
Nailed it. That's right.
And that sounds like that's exactly what you've experienced.
You nailed it. And it's funny because once you finally cultivate that mindset that it's not about the money, I'm going to be of significance, make an impact, contribute to this world, the money is a byproduct. Couldn't have said it better myself. And more money than you ever dreamed possible. But ultimately, it can't be your first intention. And let me be clear, like, I want to make a lot of wealth from my family unapologetically, but it's not my primary priority. And everybody should be unapologetic about wanting to make money, because with money, you could do great things like give back and take care of your family and so forth. But ultimately, if you do things for the right reasons, I believe the money will come.
No, and that's in my research, when you like the men who build America, like they didn't necessarily do great things, but they went down in history because of the philanthropy that they were able to do with the money that they amassed. And it seems like in this day and age, there's been a culture shift where there are really good positive impacts that you can have that do allow you to amass that wealth so that you can be philanthropic and actually benefit society and give back for everything that you've gotten.
Yeah, I love the synergy here, by the way. I want to acknowledge that we're on the same page 100%.
So, and I knew that through your public speaking, that mindset was a big thing. And I guess I want you to elaborate on it, because when we're just talking to the general public, or in my space, when we're getting into small business, they hear a lot of this terminology, but they don't really wrap their brain around all of the facets of the importance of different pieces. Mindset is such a big importance, but you want to elaborate on, I guess, the definition of mindset, maybe the laws of attraction for the audience themselves, because it is such a huge piece to success in life, whether we're talking about business or just flat living.
Is mindset not the key to life? I mean, look, mindset will facilitate everything right or everything wrong. Depends upon your mindset, right? And like, if you want to look good or you're working out, whatever the case may be, you obviously want to stay physically fit. Spoiler alert, it's even more significant to stay mentally fit. And you do that by sharpening the axe, by reading, by listening to podcasts, by following Jason's show and so forth. And mindset is literally, it will open up all the doors for you, the opportunities. It will increase your imagination. Where most people see limitations, you will see possibilities, but it could also cripple you, right? So it's so important to make that priority number one. Mindset is behind everything. And let me explain. When it comes down to mindset, it comes down to your thoughts, because most of the thoughts over the course of the day, scientifically proven, are negative. So nobody is exempt from this, has to combat that from the very moment they wake up. But here's the kicker. Thoughts are random, thinking is not. So once we understand that and we are mindful enough to have awareness, we can then go in and control which thoughts we want to take up real estate inside our mind. So anytime there's a disempowering thought, which causes the infamous limiting beliefs like I'm not worthy and so forth, it's just feedback from the universe, from whoever it is that you believe in. Just say, thank you so much. Right now, I'm feeling a little off. My frequency is a little low. I'm not vibrating high because my thoughts must be disempowering. So now that I know that, let me get to work. Let me replace those disempowering thoughts with empowering, productive, constructive thoughts. Those new thoughts will now create new beliefs. So instead of having limiting beliefs, now we have positive beliefs. I am worthy. I can do this. I can figure it out. I am a gladiator, and so forth. Those new beliefs now create new habits and behaviors, which ultimately lead to new results. So this is all mindset. It's being in control of your thoughts and dictating and being intentional with the positive thoughts that you allow to roam inside your mind. Once you do that, everything else will take shape. But it is the key to everything, because if you don't get that under control, your mindset can absolutely cripple you.
And I think, I don't think, maybe people do not grasp the concept that you can either let your mind control you, or you can control your mind and control those thoughts. And you go back into time where everybody's talked about the vibe that they feel from somebody, but a lot of times they don't take it that next step deeper to realize that vibration, that we are all vibration, and there are negative vibration and positive vibration. I encourage the people around me that don't give me that negativity, because all I can do is walk away from you. I'm not strong enough to bring your vibration up. You'll bring my vibration down. And that's where I've led to putting up those boundaries in general to try and protect that positive vibration, because negative thoughts are so natural in your mind.
I love that you just said that. And it's so key. And look, let's be honest, right? It's easier said than done, especially like if you have close family or friends that typically operate on disempowering or even negative vibes or frequencies. Bottom line is this: life is short. You need to be so intentional with who you surround yourself with, because, and look, like sometimes like if I'm around someone that doesn't have a great vibe and I'm like deflated or I feel depleted, I used to get mad at myself. Like, how do I let that happen? But the reality is energy is so powerful. So we have to take some sort of accountability for that. But at the same time, we also have a choice on who we allow to infiltrate our bubble of serenity. So bottom line is keep your distance if you can from low vibrations, and be around positive energy, big frequencies, big thinkers, good people, exciting, enthusiastic cats. And that will elevate you as well. But it comes down to a choice, and you have to be very, very intentional with your proximity.
So, and I guess towards that end, I'm going to imagine that if you're in New York and you go into Wall Street, your friends and family, that's an expected thing. That's where you're going to go to make your living and money. Did you encourage any pushback when you decided that just wasn't for you and you were going to go down a completely different path?
No. You mean in regards to pivoting to start CLS in the pandemic?
Yeah.
You know, I think it was obvious from some of my close family that I wasn't happy for quite some time. I'd kind of lost that spark, because the truth of the matter is it was never supposed to be long lasting, Wall Street. It was a season in my life. And I learned a lot specifically about discipline and structure. But ultimately, when I started CLS, I think a lot of people weren't sure exactly what was going on. They thought it was cute and entertaining and obviously valuable, but they didn't really know that I was dead serious about it. Like, this was not a side piece to me. One thing with me is like, I'm not the type of cat that procrastinates. I just never, and I take ownership of this, I never put together the idea that personal development wasn't only a passion for me, but it was actually my purpose. Once I finally found myself grounded and had some quiet time and discovered that, it was a no-brainer for me. So when I started, people liked it and they loved it, actually, but I don't think they really knew where I was going with it. I think they thought that maybe it was a, like a part-time thing in the pandemic, but I was dead serious. I don't really half-ass anything. I'm that type of cat. An old expression, do a thing, do it well. And then it really started to take off, and people were just a little bit taken aback, because it looks like a meteoric rise to the outside eye. I've only been doing it for a year and a half, and we've collaborated with some of the world's biggest celebrities and so forth. But ultimately, they don't see behind the scenes. Put in some 20-hour days in the beginning. And notice how I'm not saying working 20-hour days, because this really isn't work to me. Like this conversation right here, I'm grateful to be here. We're vibing. It's good vibration. And I genuinely love this stuff. But people were definitely a little bit surprised how quickly it took off. And I think there might even be a little bit of resentment in some people, because some of my friends that I grew up with in the beginning, if I'm being 100% vulnerable right now, They were all about it, keep spreading the message. And then when it really took off, they kind of disappeared. But it is what it is. Life happens for us, not to us. And the people the relationships that I formed, like with you, with our mutual friend Dave and so forth, since I built the CLS community, these are the people more in alignment with who I'm becoming. And that's what's most important to me right now.
Okay. So there's a word there that you touched on, vulnerability. And I mean, I've long said that I'm no better or worse than anybody, but I'm different. And I recognize I'm different because of how my brain works, and I'm not afraid to be vulnerable, but that leads to introspection where you're able to be honest with yourself about yourself, because not many people can truly look in the mirror and be like, I have a problem with procrastination. How am I going to fix that? I mean, did you find introspection as something that came natural to you, or did you have to beat your head against the wall a little bit before you start digging into your own brain?
You know, in regards to vulnerability, it's somewhat new for me. And here's the irony. When I started CLS, I was very grateful that I was attracting a community and an audience. But there was a big moment, specifically about 8 months ago. I was actually with Dave at a big speaking engagement. We were playing football on the beach with the boys. Never a good idea. All while I was training for the Chicago Marathon, and I got injured. And I came home and I got an MRI, and it was wrongfully diagnosed as a sprained ligament. I went with my intuition. I facilitated an MRI, came back. There was a tumor in my foot. Shook me up, caught me off guard. The Craig of nowadays understands that life happens for us, not to us. So the pity party was only a couple hours, as opposed to maybe 3 years ago, it might have lasted a couple months. So next day, doctors, strategies, tactics, ended up getting the surgery. Tumor came back benign, thank God. Crutches, stitches, and all that stuff. But ultimately, right after this happened, when I was first diagnosed with the tumor, I had already built the CLS audience and so forth. I remember going on Instagram to just talk to my community. And I started a show that very moment called Transparency Hour, where I literally told everyone that I just got diagnosed with a tumor in my foot. And it was me being as vulnerable as I've ever been in my entire life, because I used to be more of a private cat, believe it or not. And it was at that moment that I realized that was a pivotal moment, because I connected with my community so much deeper because I was so transparent and vulnerable with them. And they watched me go through that journey, get the surgery, crutches, stitches, get out of that, and then still show up to the New York City Marathon a couple months later with no physical training and run as fast as I ever ran in my life at 3 hours and 39 minutes. But I never played victim. I took the community through the journey with me, and it just formed such a special, intimate connection. And what that taught me is, because life is all about lessons, is the more vulnerable I am, the bigger the connection I form with the audience, because people don't want someone that's flawless. They want to see someone that goes through some trials and tribulations and how they handle it and so forth. So that was a really big moment for me. And now it's funny because I used to be afraid to be vulnerable. I was a little insecure, whatever the case would be. Now I think vulnerability is sexy. I think vulnerability is strength. I think it's courage. And I'm a big believer in being vulnerable. I think it displays a tremendous amount of just all around grit. So vulnerability has become a big aspect of who I am and who I'm becoming. Okay.
So I guess towards that end, I'm looking for the parallel. One of the things that I struggle with, I'm introverted. All things being equal, I recharge my batteries alone and generally around large bodies of water, but in peace and quiet. Yeah. And that's what I said. So when you're talking about, like, when I think of a New Yorker, I automatically think extroverted, very outgoing, comfortable around large groups of people, which is something that I struggle with myself. But was that, I guess, a pivotal moment for you that you had to address that and start making yourself comfortable, or is that something that you still struggle with?
It's so funny that you just said that. Timing is everything. I'm really loving this conversation. People think because the way I show up on social media and my membership calls and my podcast that I'm a big extrovert. I'm always on fire. The truth of the matter is I do like to perform, and I do step into that gladiator mode when I am doing that. But by nature, I am an introvert. I am a bit shy. Just a couple of days ago, I was in Texas at a huge $1 million mastermind event. And I went out to dinner with some of the speakers and some of my friends, and they were having a laugh. They're like, Craig, it's so funny. When we see you online, you're so crazy, going nuts, so much energy. But here behind the scenes at dinner, you're a little bit laid back and a little bit more quiet. The truth of the matter is that's who I am. And you mentioned like replenishing your batteries alone and by a big body of water. You can see the water behind me on the East River. I am the same exact way. And so I became comfortable being uncomfortable by showing up on social media to build a huge brand, because nowadays social media is the ultimate marketing tool. But something that will remain probably for the rest of my life is the truth of the matter is I am an introvert by nature. It just is what it is.
And it's one of those where, I mean, because again, you touched on another piece, so much that, because I mean, I'm pretty honest with the people I talk to, that 9 out of 10 fail in the first year. And of the one that makes it, 9 out of 10 fail in the first 10 years. And there's a plethora of reasons why any one of them can fail. But one of the biggest is that fear paralyzes. And it very much became you have to push past that and become comfortable being uncomfortable. Or that, I mean, I think I was reading a book where they were like, you don't want to go so far outside of your comfort zone that it's like crazy, but you always have to be operating somewhere outside of your comfort zone. Was that something that just come natural to you, or was that part of where did your research start? And I mean, where did it take you when it come to those type of realizations?
Based upon my life experience, I know that the majority of growth is on the backside of pain, right? So when I first started running a few years back, running was not my thing. I was always a weightlifter. And I was very humbled with the fact that the first 2 miles I ran, I was out of breath. Then I realized, was it really my physicality or was it my mindset? Next thing you know, ran 4 marathons that very next year. And I grew a lot as a man from those marathons. My first couple speaking engagements, right? I felt that anxious, those nerves, those butterflies right before. But I'm better after each and every single one. Right. And be able to transfer energy to a live audience, to a crowd, to make an impact. Everything I've ever done that was uncomfortable made me better, and it made me grow. So I actually look forward to uncomfortable situations right now. I lean into them because my paradigm is that on the other side, I'll be more seasoned, grown, and it'll make me better and stronger. So I know that now. And I think this is a really good message for your audience listening today and your listeners, is that stepping into uncomfortable situations might be uncomfortable, but that's just short term. It's only temporary. The growth that you'll have following that uncomfortable situation will last a lifetime. So begin to associate pleasure as opposed to pain with leaning into uncomfortable situations, because that's where the major growth happens in life, in my personal opinion.
And I mean, that's pretty powerful in itself. I mean, something that I look to learn something new every day. And that's, my brain will be chewing on that, because I'm not going to deny that that's something that I'm comfortable in one-on-one or small group conversations. But my anxiety automatically ratchets up when I get around large groups of people. And I've learned through that self-talk that I don't need to be telling myself that, because it's something that I'll never overcome if I keep talking to myself and telling myself that I get anxious in those types of environments or those situations. So when it comes to what you've done and what you've accomplished in the last couple of years, did you just jump in with both feet and try and learn along the way? Or was there a significant amount of research and contacts and development setting up in itself? And I say that because when I got into business, I just jumped in with both feet. I did not know what I was doing in any way, shape, or form. When I got to the point of actually starting the podcast, I thought, you know what? I don't need to make all this hard lessons. And I sought counsel before I actually opened up and tried to actually do this. So when you say that you're having just on fire, big results, maybe there's a little bit of luck in everything. Was there a buildup of a plan to execute when you stepped in, or was it just a step in and I'm going to figure it out along the way?
So when I felt guided in the beginning of the pandemic, and I felt that tap on the shoulder and those whispers, and I put CLS together, Cultivate Lasting Symphony, also a play on my initials, Craig Siegel, and the personal development brand, I thought very big. I said, if we're going to do this, let's do this. Let's be the Apple of personal development. bigger than Tony Robbins, so to speak, not for an ego thing, just to make the biggest impact possible. And ultimately, I looked online because although I've had financial success in business, in multiple businesses, I had zero experience in the online space. This was a new arena to me. I looked around, I saw some people that were doing things that were relatable to me. One was our mutual friend, Dave. Another one was Ed Milet. And I kind of just gathered what I liked and I saw what I didn't like. And I constructed a strategy and I began to reverse engineer it from the end result. And I just got to work. And then a few months into it, as I began to have some success, I ended up forming very strategic relationships, formed a relationship with Dave, flew across the country, shook his hand. Now we have a weekly show, The Paradigm Shift, which has got greenlit for Apple TV and so forth. And so I definitely consulted people who have more experience than I do, 100%, I counsel. But in the beginning, I just went in with both feet straight up. I said to myself, I know there's no guarantee of success, but I know this. I'm resilient enough and resourceful enough to figure out if something doesn't work, I'll figure out why, and it'll be a lesson that I could apply and get better. And so I just went at it. And then ultimately I did have some success and then also began to form strategic relationships and so forth. But I believe that when you have that feeling, when it feels good, it feels aligned, you got to strike while the iron's hot, because oftentimes you could talk yourself out of it. So answer your question in a nutshell, I went in, but it wasn't very far off until I formed some strategic relationships. I think that's key. Relationships is huge.
And you touched on another piece that, how many times have you talked yourself out of things? Like you know what? I think it was a statement from Grant Cardone, and he made a comment about the problem with too many people is that when they have this bright idea, they don't strike when the iron's hot and just jump in and do it. And they spend that time talking themselves out of it. Is that something that you recognized due to letting yourself be talked out of great things, or just learned lessons as far as communicating with other people?
To be honest with you, I'm very decisive. I usually jump in right when I have an idea. And then sometimes I'm like, maybe I should have waited a little bit. So for me, it's actually the opposite. But I know most people fail because they're afraid to even start. So I'm very conscious of that mindset, so to speak. So for me, when I have a really good idea, I would rather take action and then figure out what didn't work and reapply it to make it work, as opposed to procrastinate and never get started in the first place. I see far too many people go that route and they just wake up 5-10 years later with a ton of regret. So that won't be me. And I'm not afraid to make mistakes because I believe they're not really mistakes if we learn from them. Exactly.
So in order to feed yourself positive things to motivate yourself, because I've long said that if you need outside motivation, maybe entrepreneurship is not right for you. But I have noticed in that when I need that personal motivation, I have a general routine that I stick by. Do you have any like mantras or daily routines that to keep yourself at the right mental and physical level?
Yeah. So every day I wake up, I pray, I go through my to-do list, say some prayers, I meditate a little bit, something I'm still working on because I do find it challenging to quiet the noise. But ultimately, I sharpen the axe every single day. What I mean by sharpening the axe is I'm listening to an audiobook, I'm reading, I'm looking at my journals from notes from previous books or movies, I'm listening to podcasts. It's funny because I would be doing this anyway, but because now it's my life, personal development, it's actually technically, and I quote, my job to consume as much great content as I can, learn it, and then pour it back into the audience in the community. So every day I'm working on myself. I'm not the same cat I was 2 weeks ago, let alone 2 years ago, so to speak. I'm working on myself each and every single day, books, podcasts, journaling, YouTube, whatever I could find to accumulate as much knowledge and information as I possibly can so I could process it and then make it tangible for other people to apply.
And I mean, so that's got to be a huge wealth of information. What are some of your favorite books or your favorite sources of information to feed your brain, more or less?
So it really depends upon the season. Right now, I'm rereading an oldie but a goodie, Think and Grow Rich, one of the all-time classics. I love The Secret, All Things, The Law of Attraction. Obviously, That book / movie is a little bit incomplete. There's more to it, so to speak. But I'm really big right now on manifestations, entering the quantum, the power of intention, all that stuff. I also like the power of positive thinking. It really depends on the season, but right now, those are some things that I'm really into.
So I mean, people say manifestation, and I don't know whether they try and glorify it, but again, I go back to that expounding upon it so that people understand. Because I have noticed that over time that there are things that come my way, both good and bad, and I'll look back and I'll giggle because I know I manifested it, or I'll kick myself in the because I know I manifested it. Do you want to expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've only come recently to really understand what manifestation means to me. Here's the kicker, right? You don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are, what you're able to sustain vibrationally, and what you project to the universe, so to speak. So like karma, like all those things, if you're in a really good frequency and great things are happening to you, you're manifesting that because that's where you're at right now. You're vibrating on that frequency and you have a good mindset and you're thinking positive and you're being creative, using your imagination, right? And if on the flip side, you're in a rut and bad things are happening to you, so to speak, that's an opportunity to take ownership and accountability and say, what am I doing right now that's attracting all this stuff? Because I believe in my soul that the universe is a mirror. I believe that everything is energy. Literally, every single thought is energy. So if you have good thoughts, you're going to ride that energy. If you have bad thoughts, you're going to ride that energy. And the universe picks up on either one. It doesn't care good or bad. It just picks up on what you're tuned into. So I believe that you don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are. And that's really powerful stuff, but it's really good because no matter what you're receiving right now, it's an indication to do an assessment. If you like what you're receiving, stick with that frequency. If you don't, change what you're tuned into, specifically your thoughts.
So, I mean, because that's powerful in itself. Over time, it's been one of those where I have found myself seeking lower and then I look back and I realize it's that self-talk. And I'm a big person where I don't even want to, I catch myself saying the word try and I preach to my own people, quit saying try. That leaves open the room for possibility that you're insinuating that in that self-talk to yourself. Do you got some powerful suggestions when it comes to self-talk to keep yourself out of that lower frequency?
You have to be so specific and intentional with the inner dialogue, with your inner experience, with the language that you feed yourself. It'll make or break you. If you start saying things like if, you're in trouble. But if you replace the word if with when, not if we have a top podcast, but when we have a top podcast, it's very, very important. And the universe, your vibe, your energy, your frequencies, it picks up on that. So for example, kudos to you for acknowledging that when you say the word try, that's not the most positive word that you can use. So just, I would utilize being thankful for it already happening, like future gratitude, because your body, the universe doesn't know the difference between something that happened or that might happen. As long as you can practice what it would feel like to accomplish it, that's the vibration that's going to go out there to the universe. So instead of words like try or if, I would replace those words like when, or I know I can do this, or it's already done. Time just hasn't caught up, so forth. And people underestimate, and I'm sure you'd agree, how powerful it really is on the language that you speak to yourself, for sure.
And that's one of those where, like, when I started my business, day one of creating Coffee Junkies, in my brain, it was a national brand. And I have made all of my decisions based on it being a national brand. And the reality of that, as far as the brick and mortar, it's not there yet, but it is a continually making decisions as if it is and talking as if it is, because in my mind, it already is, but you can get bogged down in the day to day. And if you're training people and talking to people about that, how do you stop them from getting bogged down in the day to day?
Yeah, you just have to reinforce conditioning, right? Feed your mind positive thoughts. Your mind's like a garden. No matter what you plant, is what's going to come to fruition. So you have to continuously plant positive seeds and stick with that. Condition yourself, stay mentally fit, work on yourself every single day, and not 3 years, but a couple weeks to a month to 2 months. You'll start being more comfortable by being optimistic, being positive, assuming that you're going to do great things. And then it becomes contagious. It's like a snowball effect and so forth. But you got to start somewhere and just stay committed. It's all about consistency, in my opinion.
And that, I mean, I don't think at every single stage in life or business that consistency is so powerful. I think people over glamorize entrepreneurship too much because you get a flash in the pan or a lucky streak. And I don't think that consistency is driven home the way it needs to be, because if you're looking to build something of any type of longevity, that consistency is so important, right down into the consistency of your habits. And that's where I'll turn that back over to you, because I'm curious as to what you are telling people in the consistency of their habits and working them down the right path.
Habits is so important because that's what separates the legends and the greats from the people that are mediocre, right? Is we all have days when we're not feeling our best. Nobody's exempt from that. Tom Brady included, right? Myself, Ed Milet, you. So what do you do on days when you're just not feeling it when you wake up? You revert back to your rituals and your habits. And if you have strong habits and rituals, you can go back and rely upon those on days when you just don't have, and I quote, it. And that'll keep you going. It'll keep you consistent. It'll keep you on the right path and so forth. If you don't have good habits and rituals, then the days that you're not feeling it, you're not going to get anything done. Anybody could be on fire when they're on fire, right? But how do you perform on the days when you're not on fire, when you're not a 10 out of 10, so to speak? I would highly suggest having very structured discipline and good routines, habits, and rituals that you could fall back upon. Revert back to your training, as they say in Navy SEAL camp.
No, and that's so solid. So at what point did you actually seek out coaching and mentorship? I mean, was it all the way in the beginning years of, I'm making that assumption because I think that people that actually get to very high levels of achievement, sooner or later, there was mentorship and or coaching that was actually involved in it. But so many small businesses, I think that that's one of the reasons that they fail, that they don't seek out that small business or that coaching and that mentorship. But where are you in that, I guess, that timeline of I've heard you mention that you went to some masterminds and that's like next level mentally for people to get over, generally because of just the cost to be able to participate in that. But where did you start when it comes to mentorship and coaching? Because obviously I'm saying now at this point, you're on the other side of that, offering that mentorship and coaching the other direction.
Yeah, phenomenal question. When I first got to Wall Street, like I said earlier, and I also discovered personal development, I went down the rabbit hole with fascination in regards to NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, on how we could reprogram our brain, change what we associate pain and pleasure to, develop confidence and so forth. And I seeked out a mentor at that time, someone here in New York City that I did a lot of work with and really helped me revamp my entire mindset. And not only what I can accomplish, but what I'm capable of moving forward, cultivating a tremendous amount of confidence, expanding my capacity and so forth. And I worked with him for a couple of years and I built big businesses with that. And then ultimately, when I started CLS, after about 6 months, I seeked out mentorship from my mutual friend, Dave, who has a ton of experience and so forth. And for me now, I understand that mentorship is such a key component to success. I will make sure my kids eventually at some point, God willing, when I have them, are receiving mentorship at an early age. I will continue to have mentorship in multiple capacities for the rest of my life. I think it's so important to surround yourself with not only big thinkers, but people who have experience. We're only here in terms of this earthly physical experience. Forget about souls and spirits for a second, for so long. So we have to make the most of every single second. We have to collapse time. And the way to do that is to surround yourself with mentorship, people that can guide you, that can give you a different perspective, that could supply you with experience and so forth. And so I did it about 12 years ago when I first started personal development, and I did it again when I launched CLS. And I will be continuing to maintain mentorship in all capacities for the rest of my life. For the audience listening, I'm telling you, it's a game changer. It's the difference that makes a difference. It's mentorship.
Okay, so I'm gonna change gears on you a little bit, because look, when I knew at a very young age that I wanted to have children at a very young age, but you're saying that obviously you haven't gotten to that piece yet of having kids. Are you still looking to manifest the woman that you're looking for, or on a personal level? Where's how does this because I can't remember who it was. Somebody was like, make all of your money now and then find love and romance and family later in life. Like I said, I started having kids young. What does that look like for you, or how does that fit into your personal life plan?
Yeah. So the key, I'm no relationship expert, but I'll say this to the audience: don't ever settle. For me, I already manifested the girl of my dreams. I met her a little over a year ago. She just moved in. I've never been happier in my entire life. And life is all about contrast, right? You have to go through some dark times or some toxic relationships to want to see the light or to appreciate the right relationship when it comes. And don't ever settle, anybody. It's okay to be single, but you should not settle for something that just doesn't feel right. And ironically enough, when I was really building CLS in the beginning, going hard, I wasn't looking for anything. And isn't it interesting how the universe presents it when you're least expecting it? And I found my girlfriend, Alessia, who recently just moved in. And I'm excited. This will be the last relationship for me for sure. And in regard to your question about kids, I'm only 37 years young, but they're definitely in the near future, I would say. I love kids. My best friend in the world is my brother, Mark. And my nephew, his son, is about to turn 2, and I absolutely adore him. So kids will play a role sooner than later.
That's awesome. And I mean, congratulations on finding, because I mean, to be able to recognize the toxic relationships out there, and then to actually have the patience to not get wrapped up in that and not settle. You lit up, dude. That's what, like, obviously you have found the one. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And just to be clear, like I say toxic relationships, I'm not pointing fingers. Like I had a lot of growing up to do myself and maturing to do. But when you find the one, straight up, especially after going through some stuff that don't feel aligned or don't work, it just gives you more perspective, so to speak. And I appreciate you acknowledging the fact that I lit up, and I feel very blessed to have never settled and to finally have found the one. And it's funny because, after 5 years of a previous relationship, I was never sold. And after about 3 months on this one, I was sold right away. So it's just interesting how the world and the universe works.
That's awesome. So, I mean, honestly, man, because a lot of the reasons that I did this podcast is that I wanted to put information out there that I wish had been out there when I actually started business myself. And you've dropped so many nuggets but I try and, as I'm starting to bring things to a close, wrap up and looking for principles of success, both in life and business. You got any big nuggets that you want to make sure that you put out there as far as community development or specific mindsets that are imperative to success?
Just understanding that mindset is literally everything in life. Mindset is what separates the best from the rest. I urge the audience listening to give your imagination some exercise. Dream big. Remember what it was like to be a kid before life beat you down a little bit and you just had an imagination. You thought you could do anything, be an astronaut, right? Be a lawyer, a doctor, whatever the case may be. Think big, light that imagination up, turn it on again. And don't be afraid of failure, because there's really no such thing as failure as long as you learn lessons and reapply it. Like I said earlier in the conversation, we're not going to be here forever. Life will go by in a flicker. Make every second count. And if your intuition is telling you that you're passionate about something, say thank you so much to my soul, to the universe, to my intuition. Take that shot. I would urge the audience to be most scared, not on trying something like entrepreneurship that excites you, but be most petrified and scared of not taking that shot and living with regret or what if. And trust me when I tell you, life can be hard. Let's not sugarcoat it. Choose your hard. Is it tough to try entrepreneurship, have some ups and downs, and ultimately a lot of highs and some lows? Yes, it is. But trust me, the reward is well worth it. But you know what else is hard? Is just coasting and being unfulfilled and waking up every day unhappy with a lack of purpose, with a lack of vision. That's hard too. So choose your hard. Take that shot. And if you believe you're not worthy, look yourself in the mirror and say, why not you?
That is awesome. That is awesome. So
get me fired up.
Nah, brother, that's great. So, because the thing is like coaching is not my thing. And when I say not, we've had that discussion inside of my organization where they were talking about, well, maybe you should be offering some consulting. And I'm like, no, I'm going to franchise my brands and I'm going to try and reserve that for talking to my franchisees. But not to say that I don't want to get into public speaking at some point, but my point is coaching and mentorship is something that is your direct line. Where do people find you? Where are all of the ways that people can find you, your brand, your business?
Yeah. So anywhere you listen to podcasts, the record breaking, the CLS experience, we have a membership, which is a monthly subscription. There's 300 people in there right now. It's all like-minded, big thinking individuals. We meet once a week on Wednesdays. Everybody connects, networks, does business with each other and so forth. You can also go to our website, cultivatelastingsymphony.com, to find out more. I do one-on-one coaching as well. Obviously, there's a waiting list. I have a mastermind, which is currently in progress. I'll be releasing the next one at some point at the end of the summer. And just join the free texting community. It's content every single day, nuggets, gems to keep you mentally fit. Just text the word Jason to 917-634-3796. You can throw it in the show notes. This way I know it came from you, and it's totally free. Just be surrounded by big thinkers, positive energy, and vibrating on their frequency, like we talked about earlier on the show, for sure.
That is awesome, brother. It has been an absolute pleasure making your acquaintance and getting to know a little bit more about you. And yes, that passion, very much. You exude that passion, and that is a principle of success in itself.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the kind words. And I'm looking forward to building the friendship, brother. Anything I could do to support, I'm here for you.
Absolutely, brother. All right. Well, that concludes this episode of the Julius Files. So until next time, you guys have a good day.